What's this, bro? The Friends with Adam Sandler effect. Alright, alright.
They say it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And if you happen to befriend Adam Sandler between 1984 and 1994, you would likely have a multi-billion-dollar box office resume. In this 10-year stretch, Adam basically met everyone he would end up working closely with on films for the rest of his 30-year career. This group helped Sandler dominate Hollywood, whether they were writing, producing, directing, or sharing the screen with him. You could argue that Adam Sandler does not like making new friends. The only people added to the Sandlerverse in the 2000s were Nick Swardson and Kevin James. And yeah, Adam is definitely a good guy, helping his buddies stay employed all these years, but he also needs them more than you realize. Comedy and cinema fans have been debating on whether or not Adam Sandler is funny since the 80s. However, even he knew he wasn't that funny, which is why he carefully crafted an army of yes men who were great at making Adam Sandler films, but wouldn't find much success without him.
1 second chat.
Exploded into superstardom is actually more mysterious than you'd think. Today we are going to take a closer look into the Sandler squad who helped him build a Hollywood mediocre movie machine. That machine would lead to one of the most debated legacies of all time.
What keeps you in the game? It seems
Oh man, I was so crazy when I was young. I just thought, like, yeah, I'm gonna be huge. I'm so psychotic.
Delusion. The dream of becoming a Hollywood star is often shut down by the people around you. They will call you crazy. You're never gonna make it, they'd say. Adam was delusional, but that's exactly what you need to be to succeed. From the moment he decided to be a comedian at age 17, he convinced as many people as he could to believe in his delusional dream. Adam arrived at New York University's Tisch School of the Arts in 1984, where he would be surrounded by thousands of other students pursuing artistic careers. His roommate, Tim ꜱᴜᴜ, would be the very first member of the Sandler Dream Team. Tim would go on to write Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, The Wedding Singer, The Waterboy, Mr. Deeds, Bedtime Stories, Pixels, Hubie Halloween, as well as working on multiple other Adam Sandler productions. Tim has also made his fair share of on-screen cameos, like the fireman in Mr. Deeds, or the bouncing kangaroo in Big Daddy.
Kangaroo and from far away. I like to hot ball play.
Every single creation that Tim has acted or produced in his entire career was for Sandler, which makes sense because he never intended on being in Hollywood. Tim ꜱᴜᴜ was actually an accountant, pursuing a law degree, and was never considered by his friends and family to be funny, but he was enamored by Adam's charisma. Tim said he was extremely outgoing, his mouth going a mile a minute, and funny and all over the place. It was kind of a sight to behold. As a fun hobby, Tim began writing jokes for Adam's stand-up comedy in their Brittany Hall dorm room. Adam would practice his one-liners to strangers in front of the coffee shop below his living quarters. As he got more confidence, he started hustling at comedy clubs, Pips, and Catch a Rising Star. But Adam and Tim were not funny enough to consistently get laughs from the comedy club crowd, so they decided to recruit another member to the Sandler squad to help write more material. Adam became intrigued by a young man called Frank Karachi who lived down the hall. Adam said at NYU he always frosted his hair. He had a mohawk. Girls loved him. He went to Dance Terry a lot. He went to a lot of cool clubs. He was the lord of the 80s. Frank aspired to write and direct films. He made short films in college and often had Adam star in them. He was the first person to direct Adam Sandler on a video production. Frank would go on to direct The Wedding Singer, The Waterboy, Click, Zookeeper, Here Comes the Boom, Blended, and The Ridiculous Six. In fact, the only movies Frank Karachi directed for the first 20 years were Sandler's projects. Frank recently stopped working with Sandler and just released his most critically acclaimed film of his entire career. Perhaps instead of goofy comedies, biographical documentaries were always his calling, and maybe working with Sandler was holding him back. Then again, if Sandler didn't consistently hire Frank to be his director, he might not have had a career to begin with. Plus, Adam and the gang loved to portray wacky side characters, and where would we be without Frank's portrayal of Bobby Boucher's dad, Roberto?
Your daddy, Roberto.
Daddy?
You know, I seen you on the ESPN when they were talking about you being drafted by the NFL.
Adam's routine in 1995 would be going to a comedy club on Monday, absolutely bomb, come back to the dorms and revise his material with Tim and Frank, and by Friday had figured out a way to make it better. His comedic persona was the everyman who makes relatable jokes enhanced with silly voices.
I can totally talk wet dreams. You know, wet dreams kind of ruined my whole life, you know? There's only so many times you can tell your mother you lost your underwear.
Every NYC comic in the 80s knew to get recognized, you had to perform at the comic strip. Comedy legends such as Larry David, Jerry Seinfeld, and Robin Williams were a few of the many that laid their comedic foundations here. Adam was able to land himself an audition and immediately impressed the booking agent, Lucien Hold. He was only 19 years old and I signed him up immediately. He had all clean stuff, very quirky, very cute. I thought, this guy is really good. It's interesting that Lucien described Sandler with quirky and cute instead of funny. It's evident that Adam had star power, or it factor. And sometimes it factor is unexplainable. You either have it or you don't. You'll notice this becomes a trend in Adam's career. All of his friends talk about how they had a gut feeling about Adam. It wasn't necessarily that he was the funniest, they just knew he could be a star. But Adam thought he sucked.
I don't think I'm not as sharp as some of the other guys that we grew up with. And I wasn't as prepared when things went off.
In other words, you didn't memorize your stuff.
I would choke. I would choke memorizing my jokes, and I would panic, and I would see stars and stuff, and I was gulping up.
Sandler admits he wasn't the best at stand-up, but he knew it was necessary for him to learn if he wanted to have a career in comedy, film, and television. Luckily, he would meet a new funny friend, one who actually had interest in pursuing a comedy career. Alan Covert sat next to him in a history of comedy class at NYU, where they bonded over their love for the film Caddyshack. Adam invited Alan back to the Brittany Hall dorms and locked him in with the team.
I used to open up for him when he would do college tours doing stand-up, and I was their opening act, which was it's a tough job.
Why is that?
Well, Sandler fans, they don't come to see just comedians. They come to see Sandler. So there's just nothing in the world like standing in front of 6,000 people, and before you even say a word, they just all scream, "You suck!"
They started "You Suck" chant.
Yeah, the guy might as well have just said, "Ladies and gentlemen, a guy who's not Adam Sandler."
It was clear from the very beginning that Alan was always going to play the support role for Adam, whether it was on stage or on the screen. He created some extremely memorable characters like 10-Second Tom from 50 First Dates, as well as the frowsy caddy in Happy Gilmore.
All right, club. I'll get it.
But Covert always felt like he had to prove himself.
Back then, I was still like fighting. Like they had to go like, no, Covert's funny. Like, look, I had to grow that beard just to be Happy Gilmore. I was like, no, it'll be good. I'm the guy. I don't have to talk. Let me be funny and look weird.
And when Alan finally got his opportunity to be the main character in a Sandler film, he crushed it. Grandma's Boy, produced by Happy Madison Productions, was about a 35-year-old stoner and video game tester who gets evicted and has to move in with his grandma and her two old lady roommates. The irreverent comedy only secured $6 million in the box office, but was able to make over $30 million in DVD sales. The numbers seem small, but they 6 times their investment, plus the Sandler fandom loved this film just as much as other classics. This seems like an obvious sign that Covert had potential to be a strong lead, but he only got one other lead role after this in the film Strange Wilderness. After that, he continued to take a backseat and play supporting roles, like in Grown Ups 2, Bedtime Stories, Just Go With It. You could even argue his roles became less significant over the years. But why? Maybe he didn't want to be a star. Maybe he just liked supporting his buddy. Or maybe there just wasn't enough room for Adam to shine while Alan was on the screen. Considering he has producer credits on nearly every Sandler film he has acted in, maybe behind the scenes is where the team agreed he should be. Plus, he has a $12 million net worth, so whatever Adam says, eh? But Adam's grind and dedication to be great must not be understated. After securing his spot as a paid regular at the comic strip, he would still stand in the New York City subways performing covers of Beatles songs hoping to get tips from travelers. He got so confident with the guitar that he added it to his stand-up routine. In 1993, he signed a record deal with Warner Brothers. His debut comedy album, They're All Gonna Laugh at You, is actually 2 times platinum and was nominated for a Grammy. He even performed with a full band on his 1996 comedy tour, and has done countless singing performances throughout his career, with the most notable one being a song dedicated to his late friend Chris Farley. It was also during Adam's time at the comic strip that he met Chris Rock. Rock was fresh off his first Hollywood film and just getting established in the NYC comedy scene when Sandler arrived. Chris saw Adam's act and thought he was hilarious.
And I'm watching this joke about Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain once scored 100 points in the game.
I love his voice.
And Sandler does this joke. He goes,
No gay
here's
shit.
my impression the coach of the other team. Who's got Will?
But Chris didn't become a part of Adam's team because he was a star in his own right, with way too much potential to help someone else. As they developed their acts together at the comic strip, they gained support from the club's owner, Richie Timpton. Richie introduced Adam to a talent manager named Barry Moss, who in 1987 was casting for The Cosby Show. Keep in mind, The Cosby Show was the highest viewed sitcom on television for 5 years straight, averaging around 38 million views per episode. Adam auditioned and landed a small role as Smitty in just 4 episodes. From there, he secured a consistent spot telling jokes on Remote Control, which was MTV's very first original non-musical program.
You know, I went to New York last week and had a great time. Real good time. I had one of these poor guys who really thought he knew everything, but he didn't know how to fly when I threw him off the Empire State Building.
Remote Control also hosted college tours around the country where Adam was invited to perform stand-up. He was becoming somewhat of a micro-celebrity, occasionally being recognized on the streets of New York City. Adam's resume was getting strong. He had a little bit of money saved up and got a taste of Hollywood, so he decided to move to Los Angeles to get that much closer to making it on the big screen. And on the West Coast, there was another small crew of comedians who were about to join the Sandler hype train. Rob Schneider was a few years older than Adam and had already been making noise in the comedy world. He just recently did a performance on David Letterman's Tonight Show, which was basically an early sign that you made it in the 80s. Schneider knew Adam was a buzzing comic, and even saw him and Chris Rock on the cover of a small comedy magazine called Comedy USA. So Rob was shocked one evening when he was performing a small LA show to see Adam Sandler take the stage.
I saw his first show out there, and the only 2 people really laughing hard was me and him.
Really?
He was laughing at himself, and I was laughing. I took him out for a beer afterwards, and I said, "Oh man, you're gonna be really."
Yet again, Adam was not dominating the crowd, but for some reason, another comic was immediately convinced he would be a star. Rob took him out for a beer after his set, and from there, he became a part of the Sandler network. Rob helping Adam would not be a waste, as he would create some of the most memorable side characters in the Sandlerverse, such as Ula in 50 First Dates, the Minister in I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, and of course, the Townie and the Water Boy.
You can do it!
However, critics didn't think
BRB. Shout out to Pat CC. You know what I mean? Shit like that.
Schneider was all that special. Schneider received a nomination at the Golden Raspberry Awards for the Worst Supporting Actor for his role as the delivery guy in Adam's most successful 90s movie, Big Daddy.
In your experience, was Sonny a good father to Julian?
Oh, yes. They make a terrific pair. They went together like lamb and tuna fish.
Lamb and tuna fish?
Maybe like spaghetti and meatballs?
Sandler was the winner of the Worst Actor Raspberry Award for this film, and would go on to win 9 more Golden Raspberries throughout his career. He basically gets nominated for Worst Actor every time he releases a movie.
When the critics started hating me, I just felt bad for my family. I felt bad for the people who worked hard on the movies, you know, because I had so many great actors in the movies, and when we would get done shooting it, they would say to me, I think the critics are going to like this one, and I'd be like, oh, no, they're going to say bad things, and they're probably going to say bad things about you being in it.
But Big Daddy was a $235 million blockbuster hit, and Adam believed in Rob, and he was learning to ignore the critics. They immediately bounced back with Rob as the lead in Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo, which earned around $92 million in the box office. But this would be the most profitable film with Rob as a lead. One by one, every film with Rob as a lead would bring a smaller return on investment. The Animal, The Hot Chick, Deuce Bigalow, European Gigolo, Benchwarmers. They kept the fandom satisfied, but none of them exploded in performance, leading Happy Madison, Adam's production company, to stop writing movies with Rob as the lead. Rob still believed in his capability of being a main character, but the 2 movies he released outside of Happy Madison's productions were utter failures, which kind of proves that without Sandler's team, he couldn't be successful. So he went back to playing support roles, which was fine until he wasn't invited to be in Grown Ups 2, Sandler's second most successful film to date. They're doing Grown Ups 2 without me. Mistake. They should have paid me a lot of money. Well, truthfully, I wasn't sure if I'd have any TV series, so it was an availability thing. But at the end of the day, they should have said, what money does Rob need? Rob was given 5 lead roles by Sandler, and dozens of support roles over the years. Despite critics relentlessly trashing his work, Sandler still gave him as much opportunity as he could. The moment Adam didn't bend over backwards for Schneider, he got angry and went to the media. This animosity led to Schneider not working with Sandler for years. They eventually mended their relationship in 2015 because Rob understood without Happy Madison, he wasn't finding success. Luckily, Sandler doesn't hold grudges because he never forgot how many favors Rob did for him early on in his career.
Everyone in this room tonight has made my life fun. People always would ask me, those bad reviews you get, how does that make you feel? Make you feel like shit? And I'd say, no, it really doesn't. I think the reason I get to say that didn't hurt me is because so many of you guys in this room made me feel great about what we've done together. And all my fellow comedians, actors, writers, collaborators, crew members, people on the streets, my family, my kids, my forever girl, Jackie, all make me feel like the critics didn't know what the hell they were talking about. So thank you for all that.
Schneider got Adam in at the Improv in the late 80s, which was the hot club for upcoming comedians in LA. At the Improv, Adam befriended comedian Judd Apatow. They even got an apartment together.
Adam's the next Eddie Murphy. You just knew it even when he was bombing. It wasn't like he was killing on stage and you thought that as a result of the success of his performances. Right. We found it hilarious. The crowd was hit and miss. But there was a certain charisma, which is the charisma which led to everything that happened that you felt when he was in his early 20s. If anything, hotter because he had so much energy as a friend to make you laugh because he wasn't making it. So all that energy that he's put into his career in the early days was just used on you at dinner.
What you are starting to see is how valuable it is to keep people around you that believe in you. Adam has now developed a network of comics and writers who all uplifted him and knew he was hilarious despite crowds of comedy fans not seeing the magic. Ironically, Judd only worked with Sandler once in his career. He would go on to produce tons of movies that you probably think are way funnier than any of Sandler's films. Judd produced Anchorman, 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, Superbad, Step Brothers, Pineapple Express, Bridesmaids, and many other comedy classics. Maybe Judd had a higher standard for comedy and didn't like Sandler's vision for films, or maybe he was just focused on creating his own legacy. But while Sandler and Judd were living in that LA apartment together, Adam's buddy from NYU, Jack Giarapputo, crashed on their couch for 3 months after realizing he hated law school. Jack would go on to form Happy Madison Productions with Sandler and produce every single film Adam has ever created up until 2015 when he finally retired. But the other leader of the Sandlerverse entered Adam's life during his time at the Improv in the late 80s, David Spade. Spade was impressed with the same material that made Chris Rock a fan.
I'm going to tell you what. This is how it goes. Yes. You said, you go, Will Chamberlain scored 100 points in one game, which is true. Right. Here's my impression of his team in the timeout huddle. Hey, Will. I'm open, dude. And then you go, here's the coach on the other team in the huddle. Who's covering Will? That was right. Yeah,
I believe it's hot. I know. I used to get so excited to say that joke because it was one of the few that worked.
It's interesting how a simple joke made some of the most promising comedians fully invested in Sandler. Aside from SNL, Dave's breakout role was alongside Chris Farley in the comedy classic Tommy Boy, which is actually rated higher than any of Sandler's comedy films. They released another buddy comedy, Black Sheep, the following year. Spade bounced around from movies to TVs to animated films in the late 90s and didn't end up formally working with Adam until 2001, where he was casted as the lead role in Joe Dirt, another Sandlerverse cult classic. Throughout his career, Spade didn't want to ride the coattails of Adam. Around 2006, he started working with him more closely, taking support roles in Grandma's Boy, The Benchwarmers, and of course, Grown Ups, where the whole squad came together. But he has a wide resume of sitcom roles, the most notable being on Just Shoot Me and Rules of Engagement, both highly rated series. He also voiced various animated characters over the years, but the most popular was Cusco in Emperor's New Groove. He also voiced the video game character Sparks, who was Spyro's dragonfly friend. He even did various commercials and hosted award shows. Clearly, David Spade is the one man we all agree definitely would have been successful even if he wasn't Adam Sandler's friend. In fact, it's actually Adam who was lucky to be David Spade and Rob Schneider's friend, because they're the reason he got on Saturday Night Live in 1990. Comedian Dennis Miller was the anchor of SNL's Weekend Update segment. Weekend Update was their highest viewed program and at the time hosted hosting it was an extremely coveted position in the comedy world. Miller scouted Spade and Schneider at the Improv and invited them to audition for SNL. They secured their spot as writers at the end of season 15 in 1990. Then Chris Rock and Chris Farley were added to the SNL team in season 16. With three of Sandler's comedy buddies advancing their careers in New York, Adam got a different opportunity to be the star in his very first film, Going Overboard. Going Overboard was about a bartender on a cruise ship who dreams of becoming a comedian. The movie never hit theaters and is considered by many to be the least funny film ever made. Luckily, his career would be saved when Schneider, Spade, and Rock convinced the SNL casting director to give Sandler a shot. He moved back to New York City and was added to the writing team in December of 1990. Sandler shared a tiny office with Chris Rock, Chris Farley, and David Spade. The crew felt like they finally made it, but Schneider was the one standing out.
He was the first giant on our show.
It was been a good time.
Yeah. Dennis Miller used to walk around going, Schneider and hit. And he kind of threw it in all our faces. He was like,
What are you guys got
Yeah,
something?
that's all I hear about.
The guys would write jokes specifically designed for them, as they often relied on physical comedy, with Farley being the overweight maniac and Adam portraying goofy characters with silly accents. It didn't hit the same when anyone besides Sandler, Farley, or Spade delivered the jokes. Landing a job on SNL is basically the best comedy cosign you can receive in the industry, so it becomes much easier to get business opportunities. Adam was landing movie roles left and right. He played Dink in the film Shakes the Clown, Carmine in Coneheads, then landed a primary role as Pip in Airheads. He met Steve Buscemi on set of Airheads and would go on to cast Steve in over 10 films. Some of the fan favorite characters were the homeless man in Big Daddy or Crazy Eyes in Mr. Deeds.
Crazy Eyes.
Hey, how you doing, pal? I got your pizza for you just the way you like it. Oh.
French fries and Oreos. You know me all too well, dude.
But there was one man that Adam Sandler used as a go-to support role that ended up causing some major controversy. Peter Dante met Adam in 1992 while playing a game of one-on-one basketball at Gary Shandling's house. The two hit it off immediately. Peter would go on to have almost the exact same career path as Alan Covert, playing supporting roles and wacky side characters in various Happy Madison productions. He was the quarterback in The Waterboy.
Watch where you're going, needle dick.
The burnt-out friend in Mr. Deeds. He even got to co-star with Alan and Grandma's Boy. It seemed like Dante was a go-to side character for Sandler all the way up until Grown Ups 2. During the filming of Grown Ups 2, Adam made Peter live within a mile of him so they could play basketball every day, which was often 3 times per day. But one major mistake would end their friendship forever. In 2013, just after Grown Ups 2 released, Dante was checking into the JW Marriott Hotel in Santa Monica. According to the police report, the actor grew upset because he wanted a new room key and was not happy that staffers didn't recognize him as an actor. He then proceeded to call the black staff member the N-word as well as the F-slur, as well as lashing out at a Mexican ballet worker saying, "Do you know where you are? We don't need you." Someone from TMZ saw Dante strolling the streets days later and asked him about his belligerent antics.
At least according to this guy. He's gonna list all his black flags for us.
I know it's black markers can be about me.
After doubling down on his racist remarks, he never worked in another Adam Sandler film ever again. For the past 10 years, Dante has been living the high life, seemingly strung out on drugs and alcohol as the lead singer of a failing reggae band performing dive bars in Southern California. His real life today is the exact persona depicted in his most popular film, Grandma's Boy. But Adam's comedic persona that he created on SNL in the 90s laid the foundation for his film career.
Hey, Canteen Boy, can I help you with something?
No, Mr. McGrath, just get myself situated.
Oh, well, you know, I wouldn't want to rush you, Canteen Boy, because you're one crazy, wild man.
Whatever.
Hello. Let me water your plants. Please, while you're gone. Let me water your plants. Go at Smiley Boy.
Adam met Tim Meadows in 1993, who would go on to feature in a handful of Happy Madison productions. By 93 and 94, Adam was now a permanent on-screen talent on SNL and even recruited his first Sandler Squad member, Tim ꜱᴜᴜᴜᴜ, to write for the show. But some people, like Bill Murray, hated Adam's SNL material. Bill Murray was an SNL veteran, returning in 1993 to host, and wasn't very happy with the material he was seeing.
Which Bill Murray are you going to get? The nice Bill Murray? You're going to get the tough Bill Murray. Yeah. He's super nice to fans. He wasn't very nice to us. Interesting. He hated us. Sorry, when he hosted. He did. Wow. Absolutely hated us.
Saturday Night Live Season 20, which was the last season dominated by the Sandler crew, is up for debate as the worst season in the show's history. Because of the low ratings, NBC threatened to fire Lorne Michaels, who created and produced SNL since 1975. Sandler thought he was crushing it. I mean, him and his buddies thought the show was funny, but nobody else did, and it reflected in the viewership. SNL needed a fresh reset, so they fired Adam, Farley, Schneider, and Spade the following year.
I was fired. NBC said that I was done. Then I made over $4 billion at the box office. So I guess you could say I won.
Billy Madison released 2 months before Adam was fired from SNL. This was his first movie released through his own production company and secured a $16 million profit at the box office. Not only that, but the film became a cult classic, a part of American comedy culture. Getting fired from SNL was the best thing to ever happen to Adam Sandler. It was now 1995, he had momentum after a banger film, and had a network of more than a dozen comedians, writers, and actors who believed in his vision.
Was there a pivot point in your career where you just knew this is it? It's go time.
That's a good one, Nicky. Billy Madison is when we started going. Come on, just all my buddies. We all got together and we were like, let's do what we think is funny. And then we didn't stop doing it together, and we made a bunch of movies together.
From there, his process was very simple. Here's how I think of my scripts, Sandler jokes. I sit in my room, think up an idea, then I call up all my friends and they say, "That's awesome, you're the best." Although he was kidding here, this isn't really far from the truth. Adam is a true testament of how valuable being a leader is. He is also the product of someone who had friends who deeply cared about him and believed in him when he had nothing. Instead of leaving those people in the dust, he designed a career around them, making sure that they were able to stay employed by creating formulaic comedy films with bizarre plots, stupid side characters, screaming, dad jokes, silly songs, then rinse and repeat for 30 years. And yeah, sure, critics hated basically all of his films, but he doesn't have to listen to your criticism because he doesn't operate in your standards of quality. He clearly is a much better actor when pursuing serious roles, such as Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems. Yet he still doesn't care that critics are finally starting to praise his acting. He probably is only pursuing this next dramatic role in Spaceman because he knows comedy films are dead these days. Some people think Adam just surrounded himself with yes men, hacky comics who have nothing going for them, so they times per day. But one major
W Video, man, W Video. Reputation.
Polo G was on the road to becoming one of the biggest artists in the game. Problems kept coming up. People realized that he wasn't the person that they thought he was.
Stop. The hell?
Oh, you're going about the bro and about the money. Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This whole situation was just cooked.
Is it good for you, bro?
This whole situation was just fucking cooked, bro.
What did you get to your kids? You don't have. You grow. Something was real. At one point, people was looking at Polo G like, how you come from rapping about struggling and how hard your life was to acting like this? Now look, Polo came from a place a lot of people don't make it out, Chicago. And what make the whole situation even crazier, one of the songs that really put him on the map was a song where he was rapping about his struggle. Polo career started out good. I'm talking about back there in 2018, 2019. He was coming great. Him and TJ was going crazy. They were dropping some real good music. D2 came fresh in the game and had a song that peaked at number 11 on Billboard. Polo G was becoming this next big artist. He was coming up so quick, but that ain't all good. Eventually, the internet started to do what the internet do best. They got trolling. I'm talking about they was trying their hardest to make fun of Polo G. It was like anytime you got online and seen Polo G, they was gonna be clowning him in the comments. People started giving him the baby treatment, the baby little baby treatment. Matter of fact, people started to give him the nickname Polo G, and that is true. Basically, throughout his whole career, on his biggest songs, he was always on the piano, so people was kind of getting tired of it, and they was making fun of him. And the amount of people calling him Piano G was getting to him because on his 2021 album, he dropped a song on there named Piano G. Where guess what? He rapping on the piano, and Genius wrote this about the song. Polo G also references the nickname the artist been given by some critics and detractors to call out the lack of versatility in his songs. Despite this, Polo G states that the frequent use of piano allows him to let out his feelings better, and that he embraces the gimmick as it eventually contributed to his success, leading to a more comfortable life away from the mental and emotional pain of his previous life. But all throughout 2019, he was just going up. Same thing with 2020. But during this year, a lot of problems came when people started to accuse him of selling his soul. The rumor got so big, he even got online responding to it.
I just want to know why people want to say that I sold my soul. Like what? Like I watch my son and go to the studio. What would I find time to do like what I find time? Oh, the goat horns signifies the Baphomet. Happy hour wouldn't even know how to spell Baphomet if it weren't for autocorrect. You stupid.
2020 was a good year though. He dropped the album, he was doing all these features, and it got to a point where it was charging $85,000 just for a feature. But you probably thinking like 2020, okay, that was decent. But 2021 would be the craziest year of his career. To start, he bought a big $5 million mansion that year, and that's gonna be real important later on in the story. Someone should just keep that in the back of your mind.
Oh, in this mansion, this is where he this mansion wasn't like freaking LA, right? Some shit. And LA doesn't allow like illegal weapons and shit.
Now good, he dropped his first #1 single rap star. People was like, damn, it's gonna be his year. Until all that kind of went out the window. This year started a pattern, and that pattern kind of unfolded right now. So he doing these shows, getting all this money until June 14th, 2021. Polo got arrested for something. People get real time on him. He out of Miami cooling at his album release party for the Hall of Fame party. And after the party, everything just went left. Right when it happened, his mama hopped on IG talking about what went down.
We're in Miami, we just left Polo's release party. My kids called me in a frenzy saying that the police are all behind them. 20 cars deep, and this is not an exaggeration. What is ridiculous is the fact that a young black man can celebrate his success and still be looked at as a
Oh, whoa.
And I asked them, where is my minor son, who's 16 years old? They refuse to let me speak to my minor son. Do you see this? Do you see this? Do you see this?
What?
Beyond ridiculous? Beyond ridiculous. Beyond ridiculous. All of this is because my son Polo G literally came from his album release party and going to his after party at Allure, and they stopped them because they were driving while black. Let's keep in mind that they were driving in a licensed vehicle with security and a driver, okay? He wasn't even the person driving. Do you know how scary that is? And then when I walked up to them to ask them about my children and naming my minor son who's 16, they tell us if we don't leave that they're going to lock us up.
Wait, I was about to say something. Oh, never mind.
Miami Police Department and tell them to let my sons go.
They're in Miami. They were in Miami, bro.
Raise my children right. They are respectful people, and we
Oh,
are here
wow.
to make the success. And this is how it ends. Not on my watch. It's ridiculous. How does a traffic stop when my son's not even driving turn into a full-on police blockade of 20, 30 cars to drag 3 men out of the car? It's ridiculous. And at the very least, it's egregious and racist.
Pretty much. He lead the party, he get pulled over because the tents was a little too dark. And when the cops was trying to get everybody to drop the windows, you could kind of tell Polo and the crew he was with wasn't with them. And so it got to a point where the situation got escalated and now 12 telling everybody to get out the car. But Polo was screaming at the cops. TMZ wrote this. Cops say they told everybody to get out the car, but Polo G allegedly shot it. What do I gotta get out the vehicle for? According to the cops, they tried to forcefully move Polo from the car and the struggle ensued. He ended with the rapper and the officer on the ground. Cops say while the officer was trying to put the handcuffs on, bro, he started swinging, throwing elbows, he was striking, he was not playing. So he get hit in the face, and the chin, the forehead, and another officer say they seen Polo on top of the cop swinging his elbows and hitting. According to the docs, the cops in question suffered an abrasion to the right upper forehead, right chin area, and a swollen, bruised right cheek. But to make it all worse, they was saying Polo was throwing out threats. He was threatening to kill the cops. He was threatening to knock the cops out. Basically, he was crashing out. When they finally got the handcuffs on, bro, he was kicking the interior door. He was kicking the window. Then the cops found 2 guns in the car. But it's a problem with all of it. So 12 said that's what went down. But some independent witnesses came out with statements saying the opposite. They was contradicting what the cops said. Now look, we don't know what was said, but we just know it go against how the cops described the situation. But at the end of the day, he did get booked and charged. His mom was on Twitter not having none of that. So the Twitter account posted Polo G with his charges, and his mama said and gave her thoughts on how she felt about it. None of these charges would have been possible if the police did not contact with my son Polo G. He was not the driver. He was a passenger in a professionally licensed vehicle with security. He was moving smart and correctly. What more could he have done? But that wasn't all the legal problems he was facing. Fast forward 3 months, he out in LA and once again, a passenger in a car. But y'all hear that ring? Dang. He out in LA and once again, a passenger in the car that got pulled over. And this time, he had a concealed firearm on him. And that's a felony. So when they found that out, they hit everybody in the car with that charge. In the article, it says a male juvenile got hit with that same charge. And using common sense, it was probably his little brother. Because in the clip of his mama, remember what she said? Him and his brother that was a minor got arrested, and a juvenile is a minor. So that's just speculation. They're just connecting the dots. The legal problems wasn't over yet though. Fast forward some months after the LA situation, Courtney came on, and they did do her right. He did get lucky. They dropped 3 of the charges against him. Then some months later, they dropped the cop attack charges on him. So everything he did got dropped. Granted, he did have to take some anger management classes, but still, they got lucky. He allegedly swung on the cop and got the charges dropped. But even though that situation had to happen in the way to fit his career wasn't as positive. So remember the clip from the very start of the video where he was disrespecting the cop? That was from this night.
Again back about the Greenbrook stuff. It's an honorable living, man. It's an honorable living. Bro, I don't care, bro. Can you stop talking? Is that what rappers do? All you want to do is talk? Just shut up already. Bro, that's great. Bro, you're like a little kid. I'm smarter than you. I look better than you. Bro, like you're like a little kid, bro. Are you serious?
That is kind of immature.
I look better than you.
That is pretty immature.
My girl don't got Instagram, bro.
That is immature, bro.
So yeah, he might have got off free, but to the public, they started to look at him like he was kind of a cornball. They was feeling like Polo G was this entitled brat. That's basically how the internet was feeling. And I'm not hating, I'm just telling you how the world feels. But there was a whole situation. I ain't even mentioned it. And before I tell y'all about that, make sure you join the Discord. Link is at the top of the description. Night shit. all sides of the house, every entrance, and at the rainbow saying the door own little situation. It's the middle of the time all these legal battles was happening. His mama got in her own little situation. It's the middle of the night. She was asleep, and she got alert on her phone saying the doorbell had some motion. So she opened it up, and I'm telling you, these niggas was on some Rainbow Six Siege time. It was people at all sides of the house, every entrance, and at the same time, they kept them doors open. She was
Really?
She seen that go down. She grabbed the fire up there and let some shots go. And luckily she did have that strap on, because when them shots came out, every single one of them robbers ran away. And after all that went down, Polo G hired 24/7 armed security at her house. And by the time 2022 came around, the talk around his name wasn't really about the music. It slowly started to push away from the music and more into the legal problems he was in. Because he wasn't dropping the music. Basically, 2022 wasn't really nothing too exciting for Polo G, other than him and her getting sued for $300,000. Basically, they allegedly signed a contract with a promoter to perform. But then these two double booked concert dates in Tampa and Atlanta. A lot of shows happening in Tampa. Meaning, they didn't go to his show. They went to another one in Atlanta while his show was in Florida. And the promoter was saying this cost them over $300,000 in damage. $105 for Polo, $43 for her, then nearly $200,000 to pay the venue, soundstage, lighting, advertising, promotion, nigga, hosting everything. For some months after this, he was cool and wasn't fighting no cops, wasn't arguing with nobody, nothing. Until early 2023. This was around the time Gunna was getting accused of being a rat and people was turning on him. Well, people started to drag Polo G into it. Pretty much every artist was disowning Gunna. Everybody unfollowing him. So when people checked Polo G following him, seeing he didn't follow Gunna, they brought him right into all. Lil Jumper was online posting saying Polo G follows the trend and unfollows Gunna. Polo wasn't having none of that. He hopped on IG defending himself randomly getting brought.
He never followed Gunna.
I wasn't following him. Y'all be on my meat. I don't follow behind nobody. I make my own decisions as a man, and I do a good job at minding my business. You don't see me and stuff for a reason. I don't mess with y'all good or bad, plain and simple. But even though he was in all these problems with people from all across the industry, that man was still working on music. He still had something waiting for the fans. 2 years after his last QR codes randomly start popping up in all these posters across LA. And on August 15th, after people started getting hyped about it, he dropped the album trailer and told the world the album was finally coming out in September. He ain't dropped in 2 years. His fans is hungry, but he ain't know what August was finna have in store for him. August 23rd came around. Remember that incident I was talking about from earlier? Where this when that come back into play. This day, dozens and dozens of cops pull up to his crib, full body armor, full suits, everybody suited up, they raided his house. They ran right in there and took everybody out of handcuffs, and 12 wasn't playing. They searched the crib, found guns and all of that. But the thing is, Polo G wasn't a felon, so he could have a strap if he wanted to. And Polo lawyer had this to say: it's widely known that Polo G ain't a convicted felon and never was a felon. I personally got all his charges in Miami dismissed when he was, in our opinion, wrongfully arrested and charged. They refused to allow access to our client, which is illegal and unethical in practice. Someone got to answer for these new wrongful acts. The problem was, this wasn't just one gun, this wasn't just two, this was 7 different ways. I'm talking about he had a whole arsenal here. It was all kind of guns in there. XXL said this: Polo G was arrested and is now facing charges of illegal possession of a short barrel rifle. 7 weapons got found in his home when the police searched it on Wednesday. But you probably got a question in your mind, right? Like, why did they raid him?
I thought it was like 11.
His brother was standing, and his brother was getting into some problems. So on August 15th, his brother named Trench Baby was at a music video shoot, and he allegedly tried to rob the director. They said Trench Baby walked up on him, right? And he was getting ready to rob him. But this wasn't no regular robbery. He didn't just go in his pockets. He told that nigga, get your phone out and wire me the money. You know how crazy it is for somebody to rob you, and instead of just taking the money you got on you in person, he goes through your phone and makes you wire him some money. But when 12 first came, Both Polo and his brother got hit with some wild charges. They were kidnapping, robbery, and assault with a deadly weapon. And with all this going on, Polo G delayed the album. And I'm not talking about no little delay, a month or two. I'm talking about he delayed this album from September 2023 to August 2024. And that's okay. He just delayed his album a whole year. It can't get no worse than that. A few months later, his brother caught a bite. Soon after Polo House got raided, they said his brother got into a drive-by and smoked the dude. And this was just 3 months ago from this video. I don't know what else Polo G got in store, but the past few years of his life been straight problems. Then on top of all the problems, he's still a music artist. He still got fans that's hungry for music. And he ain't gave them an album since 2021, and we is in 2024. Even though Polo G is getting all this money, he's still going through real life problems. Hopefully he can lock in, because the way it's looking right now, it ain't
like
going
Cardi
too well.
effect.
Kind of like the artist from my last video, Ski Mask. This man done went through so many life problems and nearly abandoned his rap career. But lately, he been turning everything around and changing their opinion. And that video's on screen right now.
That's crazy, bro. That's crazy, bro. Yo, Amari, what's good? YouTube, follow the Twitch, and subscribe.